Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Vero Nova, a larger offering from Vero. You guys probably know I'm a big fan of Vero knives. I actually have a few in my own personal collection, so the fact that he released another large model is right up my alley. I'm really excited about this one. I want to get something straight right off the bat. For some reason, there were people who were sure that the OEM for this one was Riot instead of Bestech. That is wrong. I confirmed with Joseph that it is in fact Bestech, so ignore comments like this. they are incorrect. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew. Bestech has been the OEM for all of their knives except for one. There was one other model, and Joseph just told me, and I forgot what it was. There was something that was made by Riot, but it wasn't this. So, anyways, these are, they were dropped, and if you go to the website right now, they might list as sold out, but I also confirmed with Vero that there are more coming in September of 2024. So don't panic. You can use the link down in the description to check these out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to Vero for sending this in for me to take a look at. I don't get to keep it. It's going back to Vero Knives when I'm done. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at the_metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Sorry, I didn't have my tape measure ready. Gosh, unprofessional. Overall length of the Nova coming in at 8 1/4. Blade length is coming in at 3.65. Cutting edge at 3.5. I have two larger knives from Vero right here so that you guys can take a look. This is the Synapse XL and the Isotope. Now, both of these knives are just a little bit bigger, but this knife does have, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it has a slightly taller blade. So, in some ways, this actually does feel bigger. The Isotope is huge and it's heavier because it's an integral, right? But this guy is definitely its own thing. I love the rectangular opening slot there. I think that looks really, really cool. And I think this is going to sound weird. It looks more Vero than Vero's flagship models. That square there is just such an iconic thing for Vero knives. But I do like how that looks. Let's go ahead and put it up against some other more common knives. Any custom scales you can find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. You can see it's a big knife. It's not quite as like robust and crazy as something like the 8010, but it's definitely big. Much bigger than things like the 8020.5. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Definitely larger than both. I mean, it's about the same length as the PM2, but it's important to point out that it has substantially more cutting edge. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Grouptillion, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. Okay, how's the action on this knife? So, Bestech is a great OEM, and I think their capabilities shine through better with some models than others. I think Vero's designs are some of the best at showcasing what Bestech is capable of making. This knife looks super duper simple on the exterior, and it is kind of, I guess, a minimalist aesthetic, kind of. But all of the little teeny tiny details, the way that it's chamfered at the edges, the way that it's contoured, and then we have this edge right here, that line that follows out and sort of splits the difference on the like the opening rectangle here. Just the general flow and streamlined aesthetic of this knife. Bestech's ability to manufacture is, I think, really it really shines best with Vero's knife. Not only that, but like the detent, which is tuned exactly right for something like this opening square, or rectangle and front flipper combo. It's really good. The thing that I love the most about this front flipper is that it's pretty much non-existent. So some people like aggressively hate front flippers, right? Like it's the bane of their existence for some reason. I mean, that's a weird thing to invest so much emotional energy into, but hey, it's the internet. Like it definitely gets weirder than that. But yeah, it's almost non-existent. So if you don't like it, you simply ignore it. You can use the little opening thing there. There's enough of a ledge where even though part of this is tucked underneath there, it's prominent enough and there's enough of a ledge that being able to sort of pinch open it, I guess, thumb flick it out, or my favorite, honestly, reverse flicking it. It all just works perfectly. The detent is not heavy, but it's a metallic ting there. Definitely enough that you get that full leverage off of the flip. I've never handled a Vero where it didn't feel super satisfying. I guess maybe the flipper on my Isotope, that could have been slightly heavier, but I think the way that this tune, admittedly, this knife here, it's a little bit of a thud, right? This detent, oh yeah. Yeah, that's nice and crispy. I like that. That's very, very good. This will feel good deploying it. Runs on bearings. No double clutch or anything like that. Your fingernails catching right before that sharpening choil there. Very little encouragement to get it into the closed position. It's just really, really satisfying all the way around. And as somebody who doesn't absolutely love front flippers, that works really well. So, very good. A lot of weight and mass of that blade, so there's a lot flinging out. It feels really satisfying to deploy it. Length and height, carry profile length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. It's really not all that thick, but it's definitely contoured. These knives appear flat. They are not. They do have some really nice high quality contouring, so I appreciate that. But about the same, maybe slightly thicker than the Para 3, just slightly. All really, I think, contributes to a good high quality ergonomic grip, just a high quality feeling in hand despite the frame not being textured or anything for grip, which we'll talk about. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Did I say length and height when I meant thickness? Whatever. You guys have watched enough reviews, you know what I was talking about. This is big. It's tall, right? So it's not quite as long as the PM2. It's definitely longer than the Para 3, but it is about as tall. Very close. People who enjoy smaller knives, this will be a lot. You will have to adapt to this, all right? It's like if you're used to carrying a larger knife, you don't really have to adapt to a smaller knife. But this is the type of knife that I would say is bigger than your average pocket knife. So there's a lot of people out there who will definitely need to adapt to something to this size. People who have regularly been carrying stuff like, if you've been carrying the Cold Steel 8010, you'll be fine, right? So it depends on what you've been carrying. But you will notice this. This is a substantial object to carry in your pocket. Let's go ahead and get out my tools for our hardware check. My tools are very inexpensive. And wow, my stuff's out of order. No! Very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find this stuff right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel, or the pinned comment. Let's see here. Did I put everything back? Yeah, I think I did. So this is a T8. I believe all of the frame screws, the body screws, are T8. Yeah, you got a hidden screw in here for the pocket clip. That might be a T6, which that's not really that important to me. But these, believe it or not, you'd think that's a stop pin screw. I think it's actually both, but it's also like going through the backspacer, or maybe that's just lipped around. That's probably the way it is. Probably lipped around the backspacer or the stop pin there. But yeah, very easy to take apart. I think we'll just try the T10 here for the pivot. Oh yes, that's beautiful. T8 and T10. What a magical relationship. Very easy to take it apart, put back together. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and I think, we'll do the calipers first and then we'll do the scale because the calipers are just more within reach at the moment. Blade stock thickness. This is a bigger boy, 154 thousandths or so. Right about the same thickness as the ZT0562, which is what I always compare it to. So definitely on the thicker side if you're like me and you consider 135 thousandths about the middle of the road for the knife world. It does have a tall blade though. So the weight we're looking at, number one, for materials, we're looking at titanium for the backspacer, clip, and scales. And then for the blade, we have MagnaCut. Let's go ahead and weigh it. 5.7 ounces, completely unsurprising. That's about what I expected. That is definitely like what I'd call heavy, but not so heavy that you won't be able to carry it. This is a knife that I would carry, in like jeans or work pants, cargo pants with a belt or something like that, right? Not massive, but definitely large. Definitely going to be a heavier object to carry around. What's the Rockwell on the MagnaCut? So there's a wide range for MagnaCut that's acceptable, and it's important to keep talking about this because Laren Thomas himself, the person who created the steel, says the optimal range it's super wide. I think he honestly says 60 to 64. That's a wide range, right? I think that the vast majority of the community, after like testing and people like really kind of zeroing in on what they like, obviously geometry plays a massive role, the task at hand, right, the environment, all of that. Generally speaking, I feel like people tend to prefer it between 62 and 64. Joseph told me that this guy's at 62 and a half, so there you go. Unless you absolutely must have your MagnaCut at 64, I find that to be perfectly acceptable. Personally, as somebody who considers himself a regular Joe and a professional of nothing, I'm a design reviewer, I casually use my knives to just boxes and I've always told you guys, I'm a very casual user. I don't go out and baton logs or anything. I don't do any extensive testing. Even some of these blades, these MagnaCut blades that have come in at 61, they've been just fine. They're not going to perform as well as the 64 stuff. But it's been okay for me, stropping it back to life after a bit. The edge retention seems all right, but some people are going to want it a little harder. So I think that's fine, 62 to 64, what the community tends to prefer. I get it. This is 62 and a half, so I think we're good to go there. Let's see. What do we need to do next? We already waited. I think we're actually ready to go here. So I like this look. When I talk about not liking a minimalist look, what I mean there is I don't like it when someone's like, I made a rectangle handle and I put a triangle blade on it and it's minimalist. And, it's like, but you didn't really design anything. You just combined two common geometric shapes. So there's not, it's like made with premium materials and it's sharp, but there's like no personality in it. That's the issue that I have with a lot of modern minimalist designs. I think Vero does that kind of minimalist thing, but his design language is so easily recognizable because it is actually oozing with personality. We can tell, right? There's a ton of minimalist designs out there. You throw them in front of people, and a couple of people might be like, "Oh yeah, that's the Smiggle muffin from Goopy Works," and it's like, why? Okay, but it's just like common shapes just mashed together. There's flow here, right? This has the large initial, I always call it the primary choil, which is not right. It's just the index finger, in this case, first and second finger position, that large area. How these lines right here, the body lines flow straight. The back of the spine of the frame and the blade, it's all straight until the drop point comes down. In my opinion, that big rectangle slot there, which in some cases is only on the back, I think that's here, right? But having it on the front, like I said, it looks more Vero than Vero. I don't know why that is. But the back side of the knife, same thing. His pocket clip on this guy is a little bit different, and I still don't absolutely love it, but I think it's better than the previous ones, right? Well, kind of. It's really hard for me to explain what I do and don't like. Number one, I love that it's milled. I love that he puts his logo on the clip, right? I love that it comes down and comes up and not too high. I do not love the forward bill. On these old ones, it does not have that forward bill, but I feel like it's too long, just slightly too long, right? But you could say, well, but on the Synapse XL, the body's longer, right? And the increased length of the pocket clip, when you compare it to the total body length, that's technically a shorter clip. And I would say, you're right. And I guess my brain doesn't always work exactly the way that I want it to. So I guess on this knife, on this body, the reason I kept grabbing them both back and forth, and I was like, gosh darn it, the reason that this pocket clip feels a little better is because it does come over and come flat at the very end. Still though, right, despite my internal dialogue, right, which is, I know what the comments will be in the comment section. It's you arguing with me in my own head. And these are all fair. Like, my criticisms with pocket clips are not, they're not universally correct. If I were to design this clip, I would make it a little bit shorter, about 15% shorter, and I would clip that last little bill off about right there, and I'd move it back. It'd be about right there. That'd be ideal. However, I'm being perfectly honest here. This area is so rounded down and so wide and so spoon-like that it's not nearly as uncomfortable as something like Civivi's Loch Ness Monster Clip, that long, narrow, super high thing that I can feel driving right into the middle of my hand. This pocket clip in the standard grip, or even choked up in this not really choil area, it's just this flat zone, doesn't really bother me too much. I'm aware that it's there, but I'm not like, and I'm not freaking out. It's fine. But yeah, so there you go. There's my thoughts on the clip. The finish here, this hand rub satin finish, I think looks absolutely beautiful, and it's always refreshing to see this over a basic machine satin finish. It's like, wait, so you like horizontal lines instead of vertical lines? I mean, that's also another fair point, I guess. I just think this looks cleaner. The whole knife feels it's so stupid to say that this knife feels horizontal. Yeah, it feels horizontal if you lay it horizontally, right? You could say it's I'm just saying the lines are going with the knife, and I like that. I think I enjoy how that looks. Vero's drop point blade is certainly not the only knife. It's not the only time this blade shape has ever taken form. On this knife, I really like that the frame is taller and the blade is taller, and the whole thing just feels more robust. Picking up both of these knives side by side, they both feel big, but the Nova with the taller blade, even though it's subtle, it just feels more like a tank. Like, this is kind of the tankiest knife he's ever made, but it's not so big. Had he made this as big as the Synapse XL, as long, I think it would have been a little too much, but it's not. Access to this lock bar is absolutely beautiful. This is so easy to disengage. I just really like that. I would love to see this with, like options for scales and maybe that is the case and I was just too lazy to look, but I feel like the only version of this was just like this. Maybe there's not. I would like to see different scale options. Obviously, like everything that I want is always a little bit, I'm asking a little bit too much here. It's not like, Vero can pump out 10,000 of these at once. But different scale options, carbon fiber. I'd also love it because I feel like this would be so cool. I'd love to see like vertical texturing, just to kind of complement this. Well, okay, I say vertical. I want to see texturing that's running like this way. I think that would look so sick with the lines here. There's nothing wrong with the plain, smooth look. I think that's totally okay. That's kind of just Vero's thing. But I'd love to see a little bit of variation, and I think it's risky to add. I always say, like, add a crosshatch or a diamond pattern to it. That kind of pulls away from the look he's trying to accomplish here. So I don't think that's always the answer. I mean, I personally would love it, but I can understand why he doesn't do it, right? Or that I've never seen it before. Maybe he did. Maybe he'd be like, I did do that. You just missed it. I don't think I have, right? But I like this. Some people are going to say it looks a little bit plain. I think there's enough here to kind of complete this whole look. There's nothing on this knife that looks out of place, which is oftentimes how I'll judge a design. Like, if I don't personally love the overall aesthetic of it, I'll still look at it and be like, yeah, but I can see like why this is shaped this way or why I did this. If it all feels appropriate for the design, then there's something to be said there. Credit where it's due. This is a situation where I both love the aesthetic and I think everything is put together properly. He doesn't deviate much from this look. Vero is a Vero. It's very rare that something he makes doesn't look as Vero as his other Veros. They're all very Vero. But the other thing I want to talk about here is the jimping is, I think, perfectly accentuates the index finger position. I always get mad when it's a little short. Like, I don't like to, this is not how I'm going to hold. I'm going to do it like this if I'm going to do some detail work, right? I think there's enough there. And the jimping is also aggressive enough that it creates real traction, both on the bare hand and with a glove, versus it just being more decorative, which is always confusing and annoying. But that's not the case here. We have a flat that runs out about 60% the length of the blade, a nice swedge. All looks good. Bestech doing a great job with execution. Fit and finish on this knife is absolutely spectacular. I wouldn't expect anything less. I do like how the backspacer runs the full length here. Does that affect the balance? boy, not really. And it's because there's so much blade. Like, it's right behind the pivot where it should be. So that's really cool. It also ensures that you cannot touch the blade when it's closed up. I like that. Creative way to do the lanyard slot there. I think that actually looks nice and kind of goes with the overall aesthetic of the knife. This is right hand only, which is a bummer to my knowledge. They don't make left-handed versions of these, and they don't give you the option to flip the clip around, so that's a bummer to lefties. But again, if I'm wrong about that, please correct me. We do have a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop, which is great and also expected. You do have a stop pin back in there, and I'm realizing now, yeah, no, it's part of the backspacer. Look at that. I mean, not part of it, but it's actually nested into the backspacer, and that means that screw goes through the backspacer, through the stop pin, which is just slightly exposed so that it's contacting the blade and not the blade contacting the backspacer. That's an interesting way. I think that's the first time I've ever seen exactly that. And then it goes all the way through the other side. So that's neat how they've done that there. Runs on bearings, no blade play, up, down, left to right, no lock stick, no pivot lash. Smooth and consistent in here. This will only get better. Beautiful clicky detent. And we have, looks like pretty darn perfect centering. Is it slightly to the left? Sometimes you can squish it and it'll move just a little bit. I think that looks pretty darn good to me. I'm not going to complain about that. What's the price in this? Base price. I think the website said $360. Now, a lot of people are going to say that's just Magna Cut and titanium. It shouldn't cost that much. This is clearly more effort. This is clearly a higher effort design. Especially with the Magna Cut and the hand rub set and finish, like that's going to add to the cost. Full backspacer, tie clip. Yeah, the handles for some people are going to leave a little bit to be desired, but they are contoured. These are limited run. Not that has anything to do with the final price. Bestech does a good job. They have similar things in their own line that run between $250 and $300. But I just feel like there's a little bit extra sauce with the Vero. Do I love the $360 price tag? No. If this came in at $325, would that be a better price? Well, yes, because it's less, but also legitimately, it feels like a more appropriate price tag. I think there's a little bit of a Vero price. I think that there's a little bit of that. I don't know. I mean, I'm just being honest with you guys, I love my Veros and I will continue to buy them. Even if I feel like I'm paying a little bit more than I should be. I don't think it's absolutely insane, the price increase, right? My guess is a lot of it is the fact that Bestech charges a lot more when you're not doing an absolutely gargantuan run, right? Like if you're doing, they probably give you better pricing the larger the scale is. And since Vero's probably like, well, I don't know that I can sell 5,000 of them, right? This is my guess. I have no idea. But I bet that OEMs have gotten smart and figured out how they can squeeze a little bit extra juice out of the rock. But I think maybe it has a lot to do with how much, they're charging him and what he stands to actually make on this stuff. So I don't know that I can really dump a lot of the blame on Joseph Vero because it's not just with Vero. I've heard this with a few different OEMs from a few different people. And I don't know that it's always fair, because they're having to pay in and, they're having to calculate what can I make off of this. So would I like to see the price lower? Yeah. Whose fault do I think that is, that the price is higher? I think it's Bestech's fault. That's just what I think. And I have Bestech's knives sent to me directly as well, right? So it's not like I'm trying to save face with one person or another. Bestech, thanks for the cool knives you sent me over the years. I think you guys might be charging a little bit too much for some of this OEM work, but maybe not. Who knows? Just my guess. That's pretty much it. Do I recommend this knife? People who like Vero knives? Absolutely, especially if you like larger knives. So this knife is clearly not going to be for everybody, though. And it's definitely more expensive than some people are willing to pay. So it's going to be a specialized group of people who are going to want to pick this up. But yeah, if you're wondering, is it quality? Or the materials quality? Is the fit and finish good, right? Is the overall execution good, as you would expect? Yes, it is. If that's the information you need before you buy it, go right ahead. You'll love it. If this is not your exact cup of tea aesthetically, and you're not specifically into larger knives or Vero knives, then you probably look around. There's lots of stuff out there. But those are my honest thoughts. I think it's cool. As a Vero as a Vero knife lover, yeah, I like it a lot. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on, TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.